Mauricio Pochettino has made it very clear that Tottenham Hotspur are operating under financial constraints due to the spiraling costs of their new stadium. While there will be some funds available due to the fact that by the time the summer arrives Spurs will not have dipped into their transfer budget at all during the past 18 months, Pochettino will need to raise more money by getting some players out the door and off the wage bill. There are some who are likely to move on as they struggle for regular game time, or those like Michel Vorm whose contract comes to an end this summer. However, there will also be a few tough decisions for Pochettino to make over players who he might feel can be moved on and upgraded, or those who the club have no choice but to cash in on. Here are the 10 players that Pochettino might just considering moving on this summer if acceptable bids arrive and he believes he can bring in a suitable upgrade or replacement. Toby Alderweireld. Let's get this controversial one out of the way straight away. In an ideal world, Tottenham would certainly not be letting the talented Belgian defender go. However, with a £25 million release clause this summer until the window's final 2 weeks, which was triggered when Spurs took the option to extend his contract by a year, Alderweireld could finally move on. Christian Eriksen and Jan Vertonghen will also both only have a year left on their deals. However, with Spurs powerless to stop Alderweireld's departure, if a club stumps up the cash then he could well be the one big name to depart. Despite Alderweireld's return to being a first-team regular this season, Pochettino is a big fan of Davinson Sanchez and sees him as the long-term man in the backline for Tottenham. With Juan Foyth progressing well this season and Vertonghen there to mentor them both, the Spurs boss may feel that it is time to let Alderweireld go and replace him with either another experienced defender or a young one, perhaps a British player, to bolster the homegrown ranks. Vincent Janssen Don't let the fact that Pochettino had to perform a massive U-turn and restore Janssen to his first-team squad after the club failed to move on the Dutchman fool you. Janssen is still 4th or 5th choice striker, depending on whether you believe Lucas Moura is also ahead of him with Kane, Llorente and Son. With no domestic cup matches, the Netherlands international is unlikely to get many, if any, minutes for the first team unless an injury crisis appears. Spurs will once again try to offload him in the summer, preferably on a permanent deal as his deal ends in 2020. Georgia's Nkoudou The Frenchman was sent off on loan to Monaco last month and is still trying to break into the struggling Ligue 1 outfit. Nkoudou has made 3 very late substitute appearances so far. Spurs will be hoping the 24-year-old, who has a contract until 2021, gets more minutes under his belt to increase his value ahead of a summer move. Serge Aurier the Ivorian has shown moments of what he could bring to the team, but on the whole in the 2 seasons since his arrival Aurier just hasn't made the impact that Tottenham hoped he would when they took a £23 million gamble on his signing from PSG. He could get another season to prove himself, but if a decent offer comes in, a move to China has been mooted, then Pochettino might just decide that with Kyle Walker-Peters waiting for his chance, the departure of Aurier might not impact on his squad too much. There is of course the slimmer prospect of selling Kieran Trippier before the World Cup star, who turns 29 early next season, sees a dip in his value. However, the England international is a favourite of Pochettino's after patiently waiting for his chance and working hard during Kyle Walker's tenure at the club. Victor Wanyama. This would be an extremely tough decision for Pochettino, and if Wanyama were to leave this summer it would only be because he had failed to convince the manager that, after his knee problems, he would not be able to contribute regularly at his previous high levels. Wanyama is one of the Argentines' generals from his time at Southampton as well as in his first sparkling season at Spurs, and this would be a really emotional call for Pochettino. Winks and Sissoko are the first-choice pairing for now, with Eric Dyer close behind, and that doesn't leave many minutes for Wanyama to prove himself this season. Lucas Moura. This is probably an unlikely summer departure, but like Aurier, Lucas has not quite reached the levels expected of him and has thus far failed to hold down a regular starting spot. He scored 8 goals, which is more than reasonable on paper from a midfielder. However, it is his assists tally that has been so disappointing, just the one against Tranmere Rovers in the FA Cup. Last season brought just the one in the Premier League as well as a couple against Rochdale and one against Swansea in the FA Cup. While Eric Lamela has long been a trusted Pochettino player, Lucas doesn't appear to have achieved that mantle yet. It would still be a surprise if the Brazilian departed Tottenham, as Pochettino may feel he can still get more out of him with plenty of work on the training ground, but with Lucas turning 27 this summer, if a big offer does come in then Spurs might just consider it. Fernando Llorente. This one will likely be down to the player himself. Spurs have an option to extend his contract by a year until 2020, and after his displays in Kane's absence, 3 goals and 3 assists in 6 games, they will probably take it, even if simply to protect an asset. The decision over whether the Spaniard moves on will be in his hands. He has spoken before about being keen to return to Athletic Bilbao, but his performances in recent weeks will have convinced Pochettino that he can rely on him to take some of the burden off Kane. Llorente himself has also spoken about being happy to extend his stay at the club. Much will depend on whether an offer comes in that offers him regular football and possibly that move home. Marcus Edwards. This season will have been a great experience for Marcus Edwards, and getting him away to a technical league to develop was a good move by those around him. He's done well on the whole in the Eredivisie, particularly since the turn of the year with some fantastic displays, and it will have taught him plenty about first-team football and its demands. When he returns to Spurs this summer, there is no option for a permanent deal to join Excelsior Rotterdam. He will have 1 year left on his deal. He and the club will have to sit down and make a decision about what comes next. If he returns and dazzles in training, then Pochettino will have no choice but to take a look at him again and perhaps take him on the pre-season tour to Asia. If he comes back with the mindset that he wants to continue playing regularly elsewhere, then the club will make that happen, and it could be on a permanent deal because of that contract length with a sell-on clause. Josh Onana. He was a bright midfield hope under Pochettino, but the Spurs boss never seemed willing to play him in his more natural central midfield position. He has since been on loan at Aston Villa last season and now Sheffield Wednesday, but it has been a couple of months to forget for Josh Onana. Pochettino told Football.London last month that he was considering recalling the injured Onana from his Sheffield Wednesday loan. In the end, the decision was made to keep him at the Championship club, particularly with the arrival of Steve Bruce, who helped develop the 21-year-old at Aston Villa. However, After Anama made his return to action from an injury which kept him out for around a month, he picked up another injury which is set to keep him out for 4 weeks. It would take a stunning last few months of the season to grab Pochettino's attention again, and you feel that Anama, who has a contract until 2021, will either be loaned out again to up his value or sold on. Cameron Carter-Vickers. Pochettino will take a good hard long look at Carter-Vickers this summer. The 21-year-old has been progressing well in the last 18 months away from Tottenham, getting plenty of games under his belt in the Championship. After a stuttering start to the season, Carter-Vickers has worked his way into the Swansea team as a regular in the back four. There was talk of the USA international returning during the January window to be sent out somewhere else, as he did last season in moving from Sheffield United to Ipswich. However, he now looks settled at Swansea, and a full season in Wales could do him the world of good in his development. His future, with 2 years left on his deal, will depend on what happens with the other defenders at Spurs this summer. Another loan move could be more likely. Keep up to date with the latest Tottenham Hotspur news, features and exclusives from football. London via our free WhatsApp service. Text news to 07776197989 and then add the number to your phone contacts book as Spurs.London, case sensitive, with spaces, to receive daily updates and breaking news from Alasdair Gold and the team on Spurs. Your phone number won't be shared with any other members of the group. Click here for more information on the service.